My girlfriend laughed with her friends and called me pathetic. She rolled her eyes as she walked away, but when she got home that night, expecting to relax, she opened the door and realized something was very, very wrong. Hey Reddit, I've got a story I need to get off my chest. I'm not sure if this is just me being overdramatic, or if I've been too lenient in a relationship that I should have walked away from long ago. But anyway, here it goes. I'm 29, and my girlfriend Caitlin and I have been dating for a little over 2 years now. We met at a mutual friend's party, and things started off pretty great. But as time went on, I began to notice some cracks in the relationship that I brushed off as normal relationship bumps. We'd always had a pretty solid foundation, at least I thought we did. But recently, well, things have changed. It started off small, little jabs, comments that felt a little off but were easy to explain away. She'd make fun of me for being too predictable or boring when I did something nice for her. But I just thought she was joking, you know? I didn't want to overthink it. So, the story I'm about to tell you happened about a week ago, and it left me shaken, unsure of where things were headed with Caitlin. We had planned to meet up for lunch that Saturday. It wasn't anything fancy, just a quiet cafe we both liked. We hadn't spent much time together the week before, so I was really looking forward to it. I arrived a bit early, like I always do, found a table by the window, and ordered my usual coffee. Then, she showed up with a couple of her friends. And right away, something felt off. They were all laughing together, and I caught a few inside jokes that I wasn't part of. I figured, no big deal. It's not like we're in a rush to get into anything serious. We're just meeting for lunch, right? But as the minutes ticked by, I started feeling more and more like an outsider in my own relationship. Instead of walking over to me like she normally would, she stayed with her friends, chatting and laughing like I wasn't even there. It's one of those things that, at first, you convince yourself doesn't bother you. But the longer it goes on, the worse it feels. I ended up just sitting there, watching as she had a good time, completely disregarding the fact that we were supposed to be spending time together. Her friends kept glancing at me, smiling to themselves, as if they knew something I didn't. Eventually, Caitlin walked over to me with a huge smile. But I could see it. The glint in her eyes wasn't the same. There was something sharp about it. Something that made me tense up before she even said a word. "Hey," she said, sitting down across from me. "Sorry about that. We just needed to catch up." She shrugged, her tone casual, like there was no reason for me to feel anything about it. I smiled back, but inside, I was already fuming. "It's fine," I said, trying to play it cool. "But I thought we were going to spend some time together today?" She didn't even flinch. Instead, she took out her phone, glancing at it like I wasn't even there. After a couple of minutes of silence, I tried to strike up a conversation. I asked about her day, how work had been, and she gave me one-word responses, barely looking up from her phone. I wasn't angry yet, but I could feel the frustration building. It wasn't just the fact that she was ignoring me, it was the way she was doing it. Like I didn't even matter. And then, it happened. She looked up at me for the first time in what felt like forever, and with a little smirk, she said, "Honestly, you're kind of pathetic sometimes. Like, you just sit there and wait for me to do something, like a little puppy. It's kinda embarrassing." My stomach dropped. I didn't know how to respond, so I just froze for a moment. But Caitlin didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She went back to her phone, her fingers tapping away like she was texting someone. I tried to laugh it off, but it was clear now, I wasn't just overthinking it. She really didn't seem to care about me the way I cared about her. She had no problem making me feel small, insignificant, and that hurt. The lunch ended with a quick kiss on the cheek, a vague promise to text me later, and her walking away without a second thought. That was just the beginning, though. It gets worse. Later that night, I figured I'd give her some space. I didn't want to blow up over something that might just be a bad day for her. So, I decided to head home, put my feet up, and watch a movie to unwind. But then, I got a text from Caitlin. "I'm just going to hang out with the girls tonight. I'll see you later." I couldn't help it. I was annoyed, but I didn't want to start another fight. I replied, "Okay, enjoy yourself." Then she went silent. No more texts. No calls. Nothing. It was like she had completely checked out of our relationship. I kept myself busy for the next couple of hours, trying to distract myself. But around 10 p.m., I started getting the feeling that something was off. I didn't know what it was, but something about her not texting me back for so long didn't sit right. Then, just as I was about to call her to check in, I heard the sound of keys at the front door. Caitlin was home. I waited for her to walk in, but instead of the usual greeting, I heard something strange. The door creaked open slowly, and I heard a soft gasp followed by silence. I thought she was just tired, but then I heard her footsteps stop. There was this strange tension in the air. The kind of tension you get when something isn't right, when things feel like they're about to break. That's when I realized something was very wrong. I could hear her standing just outside the door, the silence stretching on longer than it should. My heart was racing, and I didn't know why. I was trying to calm myself down, thinking maybe she was just tired, maybe she had had a long night out with her friends. But still, something felt wrong. I stood up from the couch and walked to the door. Slowly, I reached for the handle, the door slightly ajar. I didn't want to barge in on her if she needed space, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something had shifted. The air felt colder than it should, and even the faint sound of her breathing on the other side didn't seem right. I pushed the door open a little more, trying to keep my movements quiet. And that's when I saw her. Caitlin was standing there, her back to me, staring at something on the floor. She was frozen, like she didn't even realize I had come into the room. Her shoulders were tense, and I could see her hands gripping the door frame just slightly, as though she was holding herself up. Her usual carefree attitude was gone, replaced by something much heavier. "Caitlin," I asked quietly, not wanting to startle her. She didn't respond at first. It wasn't like her at all to be so distant. Normally, she'd turn around with a smile or at least acknowledge my presence with a little sarcastic remark. But instead, she just stood there, her back stiff and her face hidden from view. "Caitlin, what's going on?" I asked again, taking a step closer. That's when she turned around, slowly. When her eyes met mine, they were wide, like she had just snapped out of some trance. She looked different, shaken, maybe even a little scared. Her cheeks were flushed, and there was a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead, like she had just run a marathon. She didn't look like herself. I don't know," she stammered. Her voice was off, cracking slightly. She ran a hand through her hair, a nervous gesture I'd never seen from her before. "I didn't expect. I didn't think you'd be home." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let it show. I could feel my confusion building. This wasn't just about the weird vibe she'd been giving me all day. This felt like something bigger, something she hadn't been telling me. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" She didn't answer right away, her gaze darting to the floor again. She looked like she was trying to come up with something to say, but she couldn't find the words. The tension in the room was thick, and I could feel it closing in on me. I don't know where to start," she finally said, her voice small, barely above a whisper. My mind was racing. Had she been out doing something she wasn't supposed to? Was she hiding something? Had she been with another guy? It felt like every question I had about her recent behavior was bubbling to the surface, threatening to spill over. But before I could ask anything more, she finally looked up at me, her eyes desperate for something, answers, forgiveness, understanding. I wasn't sure. She shook her head, like she was trying to clear her thoughts. "I think you should sit down," she said, her voice shaky. There's something I need to tell you." I was already sitting on the couch when she said that. My stomach twisted into knots, and I felt a cold sweat on the back of my neck. What was she going to say? She sat down next to me, still keeping a bit of distance, as though she was trying to put a barrier between us. She wasn't looking directly at me anymore, but instead, she kept glancing toward the door like she wanted to run. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to gather her thoughts. She let out a deep breath before speaking again, her voice low, as if she was afraid someone might overhear. "I don't know how to explain this, but I think we've been drifting apart for a while now. And I don't know if I've been avoiding it, or if I just didn't want to see it, but things have changed." I could feel my heart racing again, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't want to react too quickly. I needed to understand what she meant by drifting apart. What do you mean, drifting apart? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Caitlin, you've been acting so different. First, it was the lunch today, then you barely acknowledged me, and now you're telling me we're drifting apart? Why didn't you just say something earlier? She shook her head, biting her lip like she was fighting tears. I didn't want to hurt you, she said quietly. I don't even know how to explain it, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that I've been putting on this act. And I don't know if I can keep pretending anymore. Her words didn't quite register at first. Putting on an act? Pretending? What was she talking about? I couldn't make sense of it, and the more I tried to understand, the more confused I became. Pretending what? I asked, my voice getting a little more frantic now. What are you pretending about, Caitlin? She hesitated again, her eyes welling up with tears. I could tell she was holding something back, something big. I've been seeing someone else, she finally blurted out, barely able to meet my eyes. I felt like the world dropped out from under me. The air in the room felt heavier, and my chest tightened as I tried to process what she had just said. It was like everything in the last few weeks, the odd comments, the distance between us. It all came rushing at me in one overwhelming wave. You're seeing someone else? I repeated, almost in disbelief. She nodded, her lip trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. But I've been seeing him for a few months now. I thought I could keep it under control, but it got out of hand. I could feel the blood draining from my face as I sat there, staring at her. This wasn't the Caitlin I knew. This wasn't the girl I had spent so much time with, the one I thought I could trust. Who is he? I demanded, my voice tight with anger and hurt. What do you want from me, Caitlin? Are you leaving me for him? She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, her hands shaking, eyes downcast, and I knew, deep down, I wasn't going to get the answer I wanted. But before she could say another word, there was a knock at the door. And when I opened it, I couldn't believe who I saw standing there. When I opened the door, my mind was still reeling from what Caitlin had just confessed. I had so many questions, so many emotions that I couldn't process fast enough. But as soon as I saw who was standing on the other side of the door, my heart skipped a beat. It was Alex. Alex was someone I'd met a few months ago, an old friend of Caitlin's who had reappeared in her life. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I'd always been the trusting type, never questioning who she spent time with. But now, seeing him on my doorstep, everything clicked. He was standing there, a little sheepish, like he wasn't sure what to expect. His eyes flicked over to Caitlin and then back to me, looking uncomfortable, as if he had been caught in something he didn't quite know how to explain. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, trying to take in the sight of him, the man who had been secretly seeing my girlfriend behind my back. He looked like he wanted to say something, but I could tell he was waiting for permission to speak, or maybe he was hoping I'd just close the door in his face. Caitlin didn't move. She just sat there, looking like she regretted everything, but also terrified of what was coming next. She probably thought Alex showing up would somehow fix everything, smooth it over like nothing had happened. But in that moment, I knew what I had to do. Not for revenge, not to hurt anyone, but to take control of a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. I looked at Alex and then back at Caitlin. My voice came out steady, though there was an edge to it that even I didn't recognize. Did you know he was coming here? I asked Caitlin, my gaze locking with hers. She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped herself. Her face flushed with shame, and she could barely meet my eyes. I turned to Alex. How long has this been going on? He shifted on his feet, looking uncomfortable. It's not what you think, he started, but I raised my hand, cutting him off. It's exactly what I think, I said. I wasn't angry, not yet anyway, but I was done with the lies, the hiding, the pretending. You both have been sneaking around, and now you want to act like it's nothing? There was a long silence. Alex's eyes flicked between Caitlin and me. It was clear he didn't want to be in the middle of this, but he was. And Caitlin, Well, she seemed like she was waiting for some kind of savior to step in and smooth things over. But no one was coming to save her. Not this time. I stepped back from the door and turned to Caitlin, then Alex. I think you two should talk, I said, my voice calm but firm. But I'm not going to sit here and let this mess destroy me. I walked away from the door, retreating to the kitchen. The thing about betrayal, about being blindsided like this, is that it doesn't happen all at once. At first, it's the small things, the doubts, the inconsistencies. Then, when the truth finally hits, it's like a cold slap to the face. But what I realized in that moment was that the power to fix this, or to at least regain control, was still in my hands. I didn't have to beg for explanations or plead for answers. I could feel Caitlin and Alex talking in the living room, their voices low, but I didn't bother to listen. I was done listening. The truth was, I didn't need to hear anything they had to say. I didn't need apologies. What I needed was clarity. And that's when I decided. It was time to turn the tables, not out of anger, but because I needed to do something for me. I needed to get back to the person I had been before all of this. The person who trusted, who believed, who gave everything. I wouldn't let this be the thing that defined me. I began to put a plan together, carefully thinking through what I could do. No, I wasn't going to go out of my way to make them suffer. But there were things I had to change, things I had overlooked, things I had let slide. Small, seemingly insignificant actions that could create a ripple effect of their own. The next morning, after they had both left, I took a few steps to rearrange the space in my apartment. I started with the simplest of things. I cleared out some of Caitlin's stuff, little things that were reminders of her presence here, things that had somehow made this place feel like our home instead of mine. I packed her clothes into boxes, neatly folded, and stacked them by the door. I didn't say anything to her, not yet. I wasn't trying to be dramatic, but I had to reclaim my space first. Then, I began contacting some of my old friends I hadn't made time for because I'd been wrapped up in this relationship. We made plans to meet up. It felt good to reconnect with people who didn't know this version of me, the one who had been so wrapped up in Caitlin's world. The days that followed were filled with small steps toward reclaiming myself. I made a list of things I wanted to do, places I wanted to go, hobbies I had abandoned, even career goals I had put on hold while I'd been wrapped up in the relationship. I wasn't going to do any of it in a way that made Caitlin or Alex feel bad. No, this was for me. This was about finding my footing again. But that didn't mean I didn't plan to confront them. It wasn't just about walking away from the relationship. It was about standing up for myself and making sure they understood what they had done. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was no longer the person who would stand by and let things happen to me. And when the time came for that confrontation, I would be ready. But what exactly would I say? How would I confront them without letting my anger take control? I couldn't answer that just yet, but I would find the right moment. The thought of seeing Caitlin again made my stomach churn, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had a plan, and I wasn't going to let them walk away with everything. It took a few days before I finally saw Caitlin again. By then, I had made sure everything was in place. The apartment felt different now, cleaner, more like my own. Her things were still there, packed away, but the clutter of her life no longer lingered in the corners of every room. I had spent my time getting back to my roots, reconnecting with friends, and even diving into some of the projects I had put on hold for too long. I wasn't sure how Caitlin was going to react when she came back, but I knew she was going to expect some big confrontation, some emotional outburst. But that wasn't what I was going for. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. When she knocked on the door that evening, I opened it to find her standing there, the usual confidence gone from her face. Her eyes were wide, as if she had been expecting me to yell at her or accuse her of something. But I didn't. I simply stepped aside and let her in. I've been thinking, I started, keeping my voice level, about everything that's happened. And I've realized that I've been giving way more than I should have. I trusted you, and I thought you were someone you clearly weren't. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. Caitlin looked at me, her expression unreadable. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up a hand to stop her. I don't want excuses. I don't want apologies. I just want you to understand that what happened here, it's not just about you and Alex. This is about me too. And I've been too busy letting people walk all over me for far too long. I paused, watching her face. The guilt was written all over her. I wasn't sure if it was because she realized the gravity of what she had done or if it was just the shock of the situation, but it didn't matter. I wasn't going to give her a chance to make things better for herself. Not anymore. I've packed her things. They're by the door. I'm done, Caitlin, I said. And this time, I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to decide if I'm worth it. I deserve better than this. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of disbelief and confusion, but she didn't say anything more. She just nodded slowly and turned toward the door. It wasn't the emotional breakdown I thought she might have. She didn't fight me, didn't beg for another chance. I think she knew I had made up my mind. When she walked out with her boxes, something inside me finally settled. It was a strange feeling, like I was waking up from a fog I didn't even realize had been hanging over me for so long. I wasn't filled with rage anymore. There was no deep satisfaction, either. It was just over, and I was ready to move on. The next day, I got a text from Alex. It was a long message filled with apologies and explanations. I didn't even read all of it before I deleted it. I had no interest in hearing what he had to say, and frankly, he wasn't worth my time. But then, as the days went by, something unexpected happened. Caitlin started calling again, apologizing profusely, begging me to reconsider. She sent me messages, trying to explain her actions, saying that she had been confused, that she wasn't in her right mind. She tried to get me to meet her for coffee, but I ignored every single one. I didn't need an apology from her. What I needed was to remind myself that I wasn't the person who had been wronged in this relationship. I wasn't the one who needed fixing. And now, after everything that had happened, I was free. I didn't have to sit around wondering what went wrong or blaming myself for not seeing the signs earlier. I had taken control. I had made the decision, and I had followed through. So here's my question to you all. Am I the a-hole for cutting her out of my life without giving her a chance to fix things? Should I have let her explain herself more? Or was it justified to walk away completely, considering what she did? I'd love to hear your opinions on this.